Hi, this is Lamar, and you're listening to Getting to Third Space with Lamar and Tom. A third space is a term that refers to a safe space for people to come together for respectful dialogue in a spirit of listening, sharing, and learning. In this podcast, we explore what it means to have third space conversations, and we try to model them. If you like what you hear in this podcast, please be sure to subscribe, share it, and of course, like it. The more people join us, the quicker we get to third space as a society. Now let's get to third space today.
Hey, Lamar, how's it going today, man?
Hey, Tom, it's going well. It's going well. How about for you, man?
Pretty good. It's a little chilly out here, so I'm in a sweatshirt, but hey, it's that time of year. It is the Hawkeye sweatshirt time.
Absolutely.
And I see you got your Hawkeye on.
I've got my Hawkeye on. I need to get some winter garb, though. I don't have a whole lot of winter stuff. So.
But isn't it always like 72 and sunny in Kansas?
Okay, I'll let you believe that. And I got to tell you, I have just been in Kansas now for, maybe 5 days. It seems like we came out to visit you in Maryland.
Yep.
Which took us down to Virginia to visit some friends.
Yep.
Which took us through West Virginia, and all the other states between there and Iowa. I was home for 4 days.
Yeah.
And cleaned the camper out and got oil changed in my car, and I took off for Dallas, southern New Mexico, northern New Mexico, southern Utah, northern Arizona, and just made it back about 4 or 5 days ago. I am ready to absorb Kansas again. I've seen a lot.
So was this a primarily fishing trip, or was this a photography trip?
Yes, it was primarily photography. It was initially half of it was going to be fishing, but our fishing partners, one by one, dropped off the hook and stringer this year, all but one. But and they're all young men with young families that are now getting very active, and so we have to rethink kind of our scheduling. My brother and I are retired old guys, and so we don't have the same schedule that they have. But a lot of photography. But some of the national parks still, they were closed because of the government shutdown. So we went to a lot of state parks or a lot of wilderness areas. That was a lot of fun. Did a lot of camping.
Well, I saw some of the photos you sent me. I mean, you usually upload some photos to me while you're traveling, and there were some just really spectacular. Those shots of, I'm assuming it was either New Mexico or Arizona, with in the desert, was just.
Oh, actually, it was southern Utah. That would have been
Utah.
Monument Valley and Valley of the Gods. Yeah,
beautiful.
You just can't take a bad picture.
Well, that's good news for me if I'm ever out there.
That's right. There you go. Take your camera.
I can take a camera and not take a bad picture in that case. So,
although I saw people taking pictures on the edge of cliffs, and I couldn't believe one gust of wind, and I'm sure they would have found the bottom of that cliff. So, for those who are listening, it's never worth it to try to get 2 feet closer. Just get a longer lens on your camera.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so let's see. It's been a busy couple weeks here. Actually,
Good.
Yeah, it has been. If you ask me what I've been doing, I don't remember it's been so busy. I mean, they've just been doing all kinds of things. But 2 weeks from now, all right, from when when this podcast comes out. It'll be on October 28th, and we will be 2 days away from having attended Cowfest.
Oh, that's utter ridiculous.
Cowfest. It's a celebration with the Frederick Flying Cows, a professional basketball team here in a development league called the TBA, and they were trying for a record of the number of people, a Guinness World Book of Records of the number of people dressed like cows. And so we have our flying cow onesies.
Really?
Yes, we do.
Can we put one on the podcast show notes to see it?
No.
I might have a copy.
Well, I tell you what, we can't right now. but we will put one up. Well, I could, yeah, we'll put one up later.
All right,
because like I said, we're taping this before CowFest, but I will take some photos at CowFest and I'll put something.
And to be
up.
fair, we'll just put you up.
No, we'll try to get one of the entire group and put 1,300 people in cow costumes, right?
I've seen these costumes; they're almost obscene.
They're not obscene. Okay, so yeah. Well, no, they're not obscene, but they're certainly different looking. That's for sure.
Yeah, let's go there. So we have a guest today that we're excited to spend some time with, Christie Vilsack, former First Lady of Iowa. Christie grew up in a small town, radius about 20 miles from where we did. I actually went to school with her younger brother, and she went to school with some of my family, and so you've known her from other situations, but so we do have some connections together. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. My cousin Steve was in school. I was in the graduating class with Christie, as was your one of your brothers,
right?
And I got to know Christie when she was First Lady. Actually, and we worked. She spent some time working in a field very similar to what I worked in, and so it's really been nice to follow her career and the career of her husband, Governor Tom Vilsack, whom, if people recognize that name, they also know that he was Secretary of Agriculture in both the Obama and Biden administrations.
Yes.
So and we are just so delighted.
Yeah, and actually, we did get the gift basket on time.
Yes,
and it was unique this year. Yeah, I mean this interview is unique. We sent what, if you're from Iowa, you will understand this. We sent Sturzing's potato chips.
Yes, that's right, and dip.
That's right.
I mean, it could be argued that we are the dips, but no, we actually sent dip. With the potato chips, right? And actually, Christie's hanging out in the green room now.
She is. That's right.
That's right. So
let's get her out here.
We should probably open that door and let her out of there. So
all right, here we go.
Well, welcome, Christie, and hey, I hope you liked that gift basket that Lamar was supposed to leave for you. How was it?
I love my gift basket. It's filled with Sturzing's potato chips from Burlington, Iowa.
Ooh, yes.
Wow. You don't know how many hoops I had to jump through from Kansas to get Sturzing potato chips to you. I'm glad you love them. Did you like the dip too?
I like the big bag, so I could eat the whole thing.
All right. We're a winner today, Tom.
Yeah. Hey, it finally got through. That's really great. And we understand there's protocol. I mean, you're former First Lady, and First Ladies can't go anywhere without getting gift baskets, right?
No, absolutely not. I have things set all around me that came in gift baskets. As a matter of fact.
I bet you do. What's the most interesting thing you got?
Oh, well, one of the most interesting things, this was not a gift basket, but when I was First Lady and I was doing teas so that people could come see the Victorian mansion that we lived in, which belonged to everybody in Iowa, somebody brought me a pound of freshly rendered lard, which I loved because, I'm a pie baker, so I'd never had any freshly rendered lard before. So that was great. But yes, coffee mugs, baseball caps, lots of T-shirts that don't fit me. Pens, lots of pens. I've got them all surrounding me here. So all kinds of things.
Well, I love pens, and I just collect pens because I love pens. So yeah, that would be just great. Just great. Well, Christie, we are really delighted that you're joining us today. And we found an article in the Iowa Capital Dispatch, and it was really your bio, right? And we really liked the bio. So we thought, well, this would be a great way to introduce Christie to our audience. Christie Vilsack is a teacher, writer, wife, mom, and grandma. Proud Iowa First Lady, congressional candidate, and USAID education advisor. a world traveler, but an Iowan by birth and choice. I write about people living close to the land who believe in community and the public good. I tend to favor underdogs. It's really a great introduction. But it also begs this question. What else do you want people to know about you?
Oh, well, I'm here. I live in a forest, an old growth forest. If I look out my window right here, I'm looking at a hickory tree and walnut trees. But if the leaves weren't on the trees, I'd be able to see the home of our son and daughter-in-law and 3 grandchildren. So they're right here. And to get from our house to theirs, you go on a deer path. The other thing you might want to know is that I am the sponsor of the newest and most sophisticated, one of the most sophisticated nuclear submarines in the world right now, called the USS Iowa. And I've been the sponsor for 10 years. So I got to christen it, and we commissioned it in May, which means the Navy accepted it. And I got to bring the ship, I got to bring the boat to life by commanding all of the sailors and the captain to board the boat.
Oh my gosh, what an honor.
I'm responsible for the crew and the captain for the rest of my life. And then my granddaughter Caroline next door will take over for me when I'm no longer around. So we'll both.
Fantastic.
I'm just fascinated by that term, sponsoring a submarine. I mean, what does it mean to sponsor a submarine?
Well, it means that I'm responsible to the crew and their families for the rest of my life. But the most people know the sponsor is, and it's always a woman, maybe it's big on tradition, who I crashed the champagne bottle on and my initials are actually soldered into the keel of the submarine. And if I were downstairs on the mantle, I have a replica of my submarine. It has the most sophisticated skin on any submarine right now. It's very sensitive. It can hear things. And so most of the crew and the captains, we've been through 3 captains in 10 years, have come to Iowa. So we bring them out here so they know what it is their namesake is all about. And they divide up into Hawkeye fans, Panther fans, and Cyclone fans. They have all in the submarine. They have their various stuff, merch.
Oh, well, that's cool.
This is really quite a surprise to me because I know I know a lot. I thought I knew a lot about you, but I didn't know that you were a sponsor of a submarine. So I think that is absolutely fascinating.
So Secretary Ray Mabus called to ask me. He was a former governor with Tom. And so he knew us both and knew that we were both from proud Navy families. And so, and also because Iola Wallace was the sponsor of the USS Iowa battleship. So it made sense that because she was the spouse of the former Secretary of Agriculture and Vice President of the United States, and from Iowa, that's when I was asked to do this. So I readily accepted but I'm having a good time doing it.
Oh,
well, I'm just realizing that we could just pretty much throw away everything we planned for this time and talk for the next hour about submarines and sponsorship.
Yes.
I think it's just
I do want to say, I'm very proud of it and proud of the many people from my state who have joined the military. Because our state is proud of the fact that we send more of our young men and women to the military than any other state. And that's gone all the way back through time. And that's because we grow young people in our state who understand the value of service and giving something back. So so I'm really proud of that.
That's an interesting statistic. I did not know that.
I didn't know that
leads the way in providing service people.
Yeah. I live just 30 minutes from Gettysburg now, just south of Gettysburg. And one of my favorite things to do with people that are visiting is to go and do the Gettysburg Battlefield Auto Tour. And you think back and you realize, that Iowa had soldiers at Gettysburg.
Yeah, I've been there as a child and as an adult with our kids, and then as in Pennsylvania. My husband's from Pennsylvania, so
that's right.
We spend a lot of time.
Yeah, pretty cool. Well, so all right. Wow, I'm still blown away by the submarine. Okay, so now we know you're a writer. and that you're an excellent writer. And we've both had a chance to read your Substack, and it's a Substack titled Common Ground.
Right.
And we will have a link to that Substack in our show notes. So if people want to go and visit it themselves and see what you're writing about, but it's really excellent, and I've really enjoyed reading the various stories in it. Tell us how it is you came to start writing Common Ground, and what are you hoping to accomplish with it? What's kind of the master plan with Common Ground?
Well, I grew up in a small town in Iowa, and I always say if I didn't have Republican friends in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, then I would have never had any friends at all. So I grew up in a place, and I came back there and raised my children in a place that was a very conservative place. And so I've just always gotten along with people. I didn't talk about it. As Midwesterners, we don't talk about those things too much. And so, but I have come to see over time, because I've been around for a long time, that a lot of the bipartisanship that was even there when I was First Lady, I was always welcome in every community in Iowa. Nobody ever suggested that I shouldn't be there or ever confronted me really with anything that was anything other than welcoming. But I noticed that that's not so much the case anymore, and that people, even in my own hometown, have lost friendships, are having trouble with family members getting through Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. And now people who are shouting down public, people have been elected by the people of my state, are shouting people down in public meetings where people should be able to go and have a civil conversation and ask questions and listen to answers. So for me, Common Ground is an attempt to pay attention to those people who are working really hard, maybe not in the public eye. They don't have a profile like mine, or people a lot more powerful than I am, who are still trying to practice democracy and are still trying to get along, and who are working across those lines. Because I think that's really important for people to understand, because people come to me often and they want to know what they can do. Who's going to lead us? How are we going to get past all of this? And I think I say to everybody, and it's the point of my column, is that it's our responsibility to do something. And it doesn't, in whatever our sphere of influence is, if you're doing something that helps other people and that you have some control over, that you can actually get something done, then that's the most important thing you can do. So I'm trying to focus on people who are searching for common ground, whether they even know it or not, but they're practicing democracy. And they're many of them, those underdogs that I mentioned, the kinds of people I grew up around, the small and mid-sized farmers, working people who are your waitress in the restaurant or the guy who fixes your car. These are the people I grew up with, right? So I went to college to a whole different place. And so the people I knew in college and the people I grew up with are living in two very different worlds right now. And so I'm trying to highlight those people who are practicing democracy every day.
What are some of the stories, or what kind of stories are you finding to write about that highlight what you just mentioned?
Well, there are sort of the high profile people, which maybe we'll talk about, like Governor Cox, who has created Disagree Better. But it's more likely that you'll find in my column people like Cindy Jones, who I've known for a long time, and Kathy, who is also in a care center with her outside of Des Moines. And they met each other by chance because they both ended up being in a care center. But Kathy, for years, she's blind. And most people think people go to a care center to die. But these two women managed to organize people in 400 nursing homes across the state to try to change a law to give Medicaid recipients a little more money to keep for their own personal use. And the two of them got together by chance when Cindy moved into this care center. Kathy had been working for 10 years to try to change a law. And Cindy, who had worked for two governors as a caseworker, between the two of them, they spent a year and they managed to get a Republican and a Democrat to sponsor bills in the Iowa legislature to give them a little more money through Medicaid. And I thought, most people don't even want to walk into a care center because they think these are inconsequential people. But they have proved that you can have a very a great life and still make a difference every day, no matter who you are. And the little Fenton Public Library up in northern Iowa, when all of a sudden the county board of supervisors decided to take their money from all of the libraries in Kossuth County, and these people decided to fight back. And I titled that one, this woman said to me, "We can't lose one more thing. We've already lost the elevator. All we have left in this little town is the cafe, which has great tenderloins, by the way, and the public library." And these guys had decided that they were going to take their money without telling the 13 small town librarians in the county at a Monday night meeting. And as things happen, somebody overheard them talking about this in the courthouse, called the librarians. And before the weekend was over, they had 100 people at that meeting, even though there are only 200 people in Fenton, the next Monday evening. And all of the people in the audience, just regular citizens, educated the county board of supervisors as to why it was important to have a public library in a small town. They thought nobody reads anymore, so it didn't really matter. Nobody was even going to notice. But there were homeschool moms. There was a 93-year-old woman who served on the, had drank her coffee there, but also served on the library board. There was, they had just received a grant from the governor for a STEM library there. So, it was these people in this little town managed to do that. And then they got a library and they've set up a 501c3 so it won't happen again. And they have, they have a board and they have a friends and they do a barbecue and raise money to put into their 501c3. So to me, that's the power of democracy. That's democracy working. They were not happy with the supervisors. The supervisors were very surprised that they had gotten that response. But if people take action in their small sphere of influence, they can change what's happening around them. And it's like Bobby Kennedy in the Ripple of Hope speech. It becomes a river. It becomes a tumult. It becomes it sweeps away injustice. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is find those. I'm a small town person. I've always lived and worked and taught in small towns, and so that's where I look for my inspiration. And I don't really care whether they're Democrats or Republicans. Half the time I don't know. I did a story about my best friend growing up in Mount Pleasant. And I mentioned in the story that I didn't know whether she was still a Republican or not. And I didn't until 5 minutes after it was published. And then she made sure I knew that she was still a Republican.
I remember reading the story about the two women in the nursing home.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the neatest story. And I learned a lot, for example, how much money they actually have left.
I had no idea. I learned
it was shocking.
Because you can't buy $50 of your own money, basically. You can't buy shoes. You can't get your haircut. You can't buy your family Christmas presents. And so, it was a really human story. And it wasn't just those two. They got other people to tell their stories. And they came to the meeting. And more importantly, they educated the administrators of the nursing homes. There are 400 in Iowa that have Medicaid. And they educated, because those administrators weren't sure that they should call their legislators and invite them to the nursing home. And Cindy said, it doesn't matter. They're not any more important than you are, your legislators. You have the right. They're working for you. You have the right to ask them to come see your nursing home. So they were educating people who were running the place, because they felt embarrassed. They didn't think they had the right to invite their legislators and to demand that they pay attention to the people who live in their care centers. So anyway.
Well, you've just got a number of really wonderful stories in your blog, and we could probably spend 2 or 3 days just kind of talking through each of those. But in fact, one of your stories is about my longtime friend Louise Lex, whom I got to know when she twisted my arm in a very friendly kind of way to be a part of Healthy Iowans. I think it was 2010 when your husband Tom was still governor of the state. And he wasn't in 2010, but this was done 10 years in advance, like 1999 and 2000, I believe. And Louise and I just clicked, and we stay in touch. In fact, I've been able to introduce Lamar to Louise as well. And And
That's an experience.
She's one of my favorite human beings. She is great. So my question though for you about this is, do you have a favorite story among those that you've written so far? And if so, what is it?
I don't know, maybe the Fenton, maybe Louise is such a character. She's 96 years old, and she, her daughter has written this great book about her.
Yes, yes.
Which is fantastic. But she doesn't quit. So even though she supposedly retired, after I got done with the story, then I heard from her because she wanted to have an event at her home and invite healthcare folks that she knew to educate the gubernatorial candidates. And so so I'm wondering if she asked you to do something, because she doesn't let up. If she gets a chance to talk to somebody who has any influence at all, she has a request. She hasn't asked. She wants you to do something because she continues to work really hard for all the people she's ever felt responsible to. And that's a long life when you're 96 and still working.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about her. I mean, she just doesn't stop, and she's one of the sweetest personalities, and she, I think, has mastered. She absolutely has mastered the ability to find a way to connect and work with people across the political spectrum.
Right, she absolutely does. If you are going to help her get done her agenda, which has to do with healthcare for all people, then she's willing to work with you, which is great.
Yeah. She is one of a kind. She really is. So, well, thank you.
She's my role model for how to continue working and aging, just to never quit.
Oh, that's really funny. She's mine too. That's, I mean, she is incredibly inspiring. After she retired, I got this one-line email from her, and she said, "Tom, I just learned from some folks at AFSCME that not only am I the oldest Iowa state employee, or was I the oldest Iowa state employee, I was the oldest state employee in the country."
Yeah, I think they put her on the front of the magazine or something, the AFSCME magazine.
Oh, that could be. Oh my gosh, I got to look it up.
Yeah.
Well, you had mentioned just a little bit earlier here about maybe we'll get to talk a little bit about Spencer Cox, Utah governor. And in one of your recent articles, you talked about some comments he made after the Charlie Kirk assassination. And I'd actually listened to that speech myself, and was quite taken by it. But you also mentioned in your article about an organization out that has kind of come out of the National Governors Association called Disagree Better.
Right.
And I went to that website after I read that article, and I was quite impressed. Tom and I have actually the basis of this podcast is about how do we have civil conversation, how do we engage in civil discourse, and I'm wanting to talk with people like you about how you experience that and the things that you share. But it's quite an interesting website with a lot of good resources to it as well. In fact, we were kind of introduced to it a couple of weeks ago. We interviewed a person running for governor here in Kansas, Ethan Corson, and Ethan's from the Kansas City area, and he talked about that same website, and it's something that I've shared with a lot of my friends as well to talk about. These are some ideas and some resources. Obviously, this is gathering a lot more attention nationwide. And I know you've interviewed a lot of people. You've been interviewed by a lot of people, but you've also interviewed a lot of people in the course of your career. And now as part of the Iowa Writers Collaborative. What have you learned about working with people and the art of learning how to disagree?
Well, I think, and I am not a very good listener because I'm a storyteller and I like to talk. So I have to practice listening to people. But I think there's an art to listening, and I don't think we listen to each other very much anymore. So I think it's really important when you're interviewing somebody or having any kind of a conversation, that you practice listening, so that not just superficially, but truly trying to listen to somebody and let them be heard. And I'm practicing. I had a lunch this week where I literally looked, and I have them right here. There are like 8 different things that on that website, the Disagree Better website, tells you to do. And listening is certainly one of them. But just, to make sure that you're not name calling, or that even the tone of your voice can suggest what you actually think about something. And so I think keeping a neutral tone and spending more time listening than talking, the whole thing about we're given one mouth and 2 ears for a reason. That my dad used to say, a wise old owl sat in the oak. The more he heard, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Now, wasn't he a wise old bird? And that was, just a saying. But sometimes we're more interested in talking about what we think and not listening to other people. And so I think that's a pretty important part of it. But I just like people. So I don't, the politics is one part of every person, but there's so many other parts of a person that I think seeing people more wholly is really important. It's very easy to categorize people. And I feel I feel that way about people. Even when I went to college and coming from Iowa, I always just felt like people categorized people from Iowa in a certain way. And I was always hoping that I could, that they would get to know me well enough to think I was just one person, that you can't just lump people together and stereotype people at all. So that I try to take that into any interview. And as an 8th grade teacher, I guess I use those skills as well. 8th graders aren't the most easy people to deal with. And I believe that you have to have a certain kind of decorum. My husband came home not too long ago. He was speaking at a Chamber of Commerce event, and they handed out ahead of time a list of guidelines for how you should behave at this event and what would happen if you didn't. And that really got me started. That's what led to the article about Governor Cox, because I said, well, I wonder if they do that at school boards, because we've had all these rowdy school board meetings in Iowa in the last couple of years. And so I started asking around, and Tom said, why don't you go talk to Scott Racker? Because Scott was a Republican legislator when Tom was governor, and he worked for Bob Ray, Republican governor. And he also is in charge of the Ray Center at Drake, which is about civility. That's their center is about civil discourse. So I talked to Scott, and he's the one that reminded me that the National Governors Association is a bipartisan group. We were very much involved in that. And so that's how I got to Governor Cox, into the whole idea, and was looking at him before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And so then it became more timely, and I moved up my schedule a little bit to talk about that. And it goes to this feeling that I have that public places, and when you have a public person who's been elected and comes into a public place to answer questions, then there should be some rules for decorum. You shouldn't be able to shout people down and not let the other people who come to listen to the answers hear them. And so a lot of that also motivates the things I'm writing about, because I'm trying to find people who are finding ways to make sure that people can be heard. You can call somebody a liar, but you don't have to shout it so loudly or cause a ruckus so that nobody else can hear it. You just have to, you have to say it. If you're going to say it, you have to say it so that the person can then respond. So those are things that motivate me to try to find that common ground where we can not come back together, because I think going back is never the right answer, but move forward into what do we do next? What do we do next to make this better?
When back with that interview we had with Ethan, he said something that I wanted to run by you and see what your thoughts are. He said there seems to be too much culture war and not enough kitchen table. Tom and I talked about the kitchen table a lot in our experience growing up in Iowa. Right. That was a big part of our life, was sitting around the kitchen table. How does that phrase sit with you? What are your thoughts about too much culture war and not enough kitchen table?
Well, that's definitely that's right on as far as I'm concerned. The kitchen table is where most things happen. The kitchen is where most things happen in a Midwestern home, a small town home, and kitchen table issues. We talk about that all the time. It seems to me that if political folks who are running for office are not talking about issues that affect everybody in a room, whatever room they're in, if they're in their high school cafeteria or at a football game or at Hy-Vee at the grocery store, if you're not talking about issues that affect everybody in that space, all of us, that's what I mean by kitchen table issues. Are the everyday issues that affect all of our lives. Most of the social issues do not necessarily affect our lives every day. There's, you can talk about abortion, or you can talk about women's reproductive health, or you can talk about the healthcare of rural women. Right? If you're talking about healthcare for rural women, then you're talking about a lot of people in the country, or rural healthcare for everybody. How do we maintain our hospitals, as opposed to women or a very specific reproductive health? Those don't always affect everybody in the room, including me as a 75-year-old woman. I'm more interested in talking about rural health or talking about for all people than I am about those divisive issues that affect, not that they're not important and that we shouldn't talk about them, but when you're running for office and during a political campaign, you only get to talk about 3 or 4 things. So if you're not talking about kitchen table issues, you're not talking about how much it costs at the grocery store, or the fact that my hometown does not have a daycare center. So how do people go to work, men and women go to work, if they have to drive to New London 7 or 8 miles away to take their children to a daycare center? If we're not talking about those kinds of issues that affect us every day, then that's too bad. We've missed a huge opportunity. If we're not talking about small and mid-sized farmers, because there are 1.7 million of them, as opposed to big ag, and I'm not even sure what that means. That's another example of putting a bunch of people into a category and castigating them for who knows what. So I get a bee in my bonnet about these things, because I think there are kitchen table issues. When I got my master's degree in journalism, my advisor tried to talk me. I was creating a column, which ended up being Main Street, which was in the Mount Pleasant News for a long time. But he wanted me to call it Kitchen Table Conversations. So that was, and I've still thought, okay, I still have a call. Then maybe that column is the next one. I don't know. But I really believe in those kitchen table conversations. That's where life happens, and that's where decisions are made. And I hope that someday, in where I live, that people like your families and mine can sit around a kitchen table and make the case that their children should stay in small towns, should make that choice, and can stay on the family farm where they can enjoy Friday night football or whatever, and have their children and generations close by, as opposed to sending them away. So those are, for me, the underdogs, and those are the kitchen table conversations. And that's one that is really near and dear to my heart, because with all the farmers that are gone and the farms that are lost and the farmland being concreted over where I live, those are the things that people care about. They want to be near their children, their grandchildren. They want to be able to pass their traditions and their ethics on to the next generation, and their culture on to the next generation. And to me, for somebody running for office, that's what it should be about. That's what we should be talking about in this country, because I think that's common ground. I think that's something we could all agree on.
Well, Tom served 2 terms as governor of the state of Iowa, which meant you served 2 terms as the first lady of the state of Iowa. You also ran for political office as well, and through your roles there and in those more political roles, you had lots of opportunities come your way, and some of which are maybe more opportunities than everyday folks would imagine. And certainly one of those opportunities would be the opportunity to speak to those with authority and power, or I guess what is the term, to speak truth to power, if you will. And so, what tips and suggestions would you have for the people listening in or watching this podcast about how you can effectively engage people of authority and power and speak truth to them?
Well, I think again, Cindy Jones in the care center. That was.
I thought you might go back to her.
That's a pretty important thing. Is nobody's better than anybody else, and I think that's really important. I think there are certain decorum. If someone is elected to office, it goes back to what I said before. If they have a title, then you don't call my husband Tom. He lost that name a long time ago, and so you use the titles. You recognize that's not that they're better than you. They're working for you. So you have a right to ask them questions. You have a right to ask them hard questions. And you don't have a right to threaten them, but my husband got his job because somebody walked into our city council chambers in small town Iowa and shot our mayor and 2 city councilmen.
Yes.
So I'm very aware of that. You don't have the right to threaten somebody and the families, but you do have a right to certainly question, and you need to exercise that right. We get to vote, but we also get to ask questions of the people who are elected to represent us, and we get to ask questions of the people who are in positions of authority, whether it's the person who's in charge of your church, or your superintendent of schools, or the board chair of some place that's getting public money. You have the right to ask those questions. That's why we have the First Amendment. We all get to express our opinions. And as a journalist, and as a teacher, and as a citizen, that's the right that I care about most. So I think people need to exercise it, and they don't need to apologize ever for speaking up in a public forum, or writing a letter to the editor, or putting something online, as long as it's again you use certain decorum, so that you're not keeping other people from talking or listening, or so that you're not making the person not want to answer your question. If you're yelling at somebody, it makes the person not want to answer, and you don't really have a chance to get your answers. But as an 8th grade teacher, I if you're dealing with 13-year-olds, you have to have rules. Robert Fulghum wrote about that book about all the things you needed to know you learned in kindergarten. And that's so, right. So there's certain decorums I think it would be good if we could continue to practice. And as I said, I always felt very welcome. And one of the things I did, though, this speaks to common ground, is that Iowa has 563 public libraries. And I've always been a proponent of public libraries. I grew up going to the Carnegie Library in my hometown and came back to my hometown to live. So I used that library for 48 years, still go there. But anyway, so public libraries are the word public is a word that's important to me. And public libraries are places where I could go. I've been to over 500 libraries in Iowa, and I could go to any town in Iowa and go to their public library, and people would come. And I never knew if they were Democrats. Some of them would come up and tell me, whisper to me before I left that they were a Democrat or a supporter. But for the most part, it was 3 or 4 generations gathering in the library to tell stories. And we talked about telling family stories and about literacy and how important that was. And we celebrated literacy. It was something that didn't used to be something that was controversial. Librarians didn't used to be controversial. They were, they were the libraries are the souls of our communities. So I could go to any town in Iowa and talk about that. And I didn't plan it that way. I didn't think, this is a place to go. I just did it because I believed in libraries. I wanted to support them. And in doing so, I realized, these are places where people still come together in a bipartisan fashion. They're not coming to see me as a Democrat. They're coming to see me because they love books and they want their kids to learn to read and to grow up being good citizens, right? So I still think public libraries serve that purpose all over the country. And I'm really in favor of preserving them for that purpose. Anything public is important to me.
Could I ask a follow-up question on the decorum thing?
Sure.
So, well, while we were preparing to talk with you in this podcast, I was wondering, how do we refer to your husband?
That's a good
And so-
question. Yeah, there's an answer.
So I looked it up, and it said that it could either be Governor Vilsack, it could be Secretary Vilsack, right? And what I learned was that the honorific would be Governor Vilsack,
Right.
because that was an elected position and the other was an appointed
Right.
position, correct?
Yes.
Is that right?
So,
All right. So have we breached decorum by referring to him as Tom?
did you call him Tom?
Yeah.
You're from your homeboy, right? You're from,
Okay. All right.
no, that's
Oh,
okay.
good. Okay.
No, that's okay. That's not a problem at all. People call him in Iowa. Everybody calls him governor, right?
Yeah.
But you are the proper way, I guess, is the last whatever you were last elected to, and so
Right.
that was governor. But if he's out in the world, then people often refer to him as secretary because they just don't.
Interesting.
If he's on
Yeah.
the coast or in Washington, they call him secretary. If he's at home, they call him governor. If he's in Mount Pleasant, they call him Tom. or in Pittsburgh, right? In Pittsburgh.
Yes. Yes.
I
that
do
ma-
have to say,
makes sense.
Chrissy, you gave this Tom an easy pass, and that's good.
It's different,
Okay,
however,
yes.
if you're talking to him, as opposed to if you didn't know him and you called him Tom, that always kind of, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's different if you're talking about him, I think. And if you're talking to me, I used to just call him governor because everybody else did, because it was just
Oh. Well, something you mentioned just brought back a flood of memories for me. Going to the Carnegie Library in Mount Pleasant. That was my escape in the summer. When my mother would take me there on Saturday
Yes.
mornings, and I could take a book out for the week.
yes.
And it was almost every week I got a new book. But
I
that
would
was a
ride my
wonderful
blue
place.
swing bicycle up to my dad's law office and park it there and walk over to the library. And Mrs. Van Allen, one of our most famous scientists, Jim Van Allen, that was his mother, Alma. Her name is on the library because she helped establish that library that we went to. But she would be sometimes sitting in, because my dad took over the Van Allen law practice when George Van Allen went on the bench. And so Mrs. Van Allen would be sitting in the waiting room sometimes when I walk in there as an 8-year-old, and she'd say, "So what are you reading these days?"
Yeah.
And I was terrified of the woman. My dad says she's one of the kindest people he ever met, but I was terrified of her. And I would forget everything. Even though I had my bike baskets were full of books, I would forget everything. And so when I became First Lady, I started going around the state, and in order to introduce myself to people, and again, it's a conversation starter if you're trying to find common ground with people, to say, "What are you reading these days?" And I realized that everybody clams up and they can't think of what they've been reading. And so that was what I would say to everybody as I traveled around the state. So I realized as an adult, I had become Mrs. Van Allen. I worked for USAID for 4 years and traveled the world to developing countries. And so I did a TEDx. The last thing I did at USAID before I left was a TEDx at George Washington University called Becoming Mrs. Van Allen. And it was about the country. It's about growing up in Mount Pleasant. But it was also about the countries that I visited because we were teaching kids to read. There are, millions and millions of kids in the world who know how to read. So we were creating textbooks in their local languages. And so I was always greeted as I came into the village. And there were women in villages in African countries like Malawi that would let their children write on the exterior walls of their homes. They got to write because they didn't have paper. So they got to practice their lessons outside by writing on the walls. And so I realized that Mrs. Van Allen and everything that I'd learned as a child and her asking me what I was reading was what it meant to be part of a community. She wasn't just me. I've talked to a lot of people. She would stop kids on the street and ask them what they were reading in Mount Pleasant. So, but it was part of a community. You realized that there were people who cared about you. It wasn't just your parents, but you belonged to these people. The Van Allens were all Republicans. I mean, I learned when I was an adult. I didn't know that when I was a child, but she cared that I learned to read, and she wanted me to know that she was interested in what I was reading. So that's what I don't want to. It's not like I want to go back. I'm not nostalgic for those things, but we need to move forward to that so that we somehow figure out, and I'm trying to figure out in my own little sphere of influence, how to get to that point where we can again care about everybody else's kids and everybody else and hope for their well-being. A story that I wrote just that came out yesterday talked about, it was a new term about food insecurity, and they were talking about neighbors in need. It's a new way of giving dignity to people who may need help, knowing that food insecurity is just one of the many things that they're dealing with. But I thought, here is a new term, neighbors in need. And I thought somebody created that to try to create a sense of, these aren't just people that you're handing food, you're taking food to the food bank because they're poor. They're your neighbors and they need something from you. It's not a handout. They need understanding, they need education, neighbors in need. So maybe it's creating a new language that we can move forward with.
I feel compelled. I feel compelled to tell you that I am reading a book that I should have read years and years ago. But I'm reading. I Buried My Heart at Wounded Knee.
Oh, wow. Great.
Yeah. And I should have read it a long time ago.
No, that's a good one. Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
No, that's okay, because I just wanted to check my own memory here. And the nice thing is that we can edit this out if I have it completely wrong. So, so Jim Van Allen, a scientist at the University of Iowa, and it's the Van Allen radiation belt.
Yes.
It's named after
Jim
him. Is that correct?
Jim was the head of the physics department. His brother Maurice was head of the medical. He was also head of a department. I'm just now not getting the right one, but he was a doctor, brain.
Okay.
And then their youngest, and George was a federal judge, or not a federal judge, a district court judge in Mount Pleasant. And then their younger brother worked for Howard Hughes in part of Howard Hughes's. He was part of that whole deal. So they had 4 illustrious sons.
I did appear before a judge once in Mount Pleasant, but it had to do with.
We have time for that, Tom. Let's talk about that.
But I don't think it was a Van Allen. I just want to be clear. So.
Okay. We know you have been an advocate for literacy for a lot of your career. And you talk about being a teacher, advocating for libraries and reading. A couple of days ago, an article came out titled "America is Sliding Towards Illiteracy." And in the short time, we've tried to, get as much information we can to see if this is something really is a concern. And it seems to be a concern for a lot of people. We try to encourage our listeners to be literate in the media, to understand and what they're hearing or maybe reading and processing that. So we encourage kind of them to take a good look at the source of their information. How do you assess kind of the state of literacy in the U.S. today? What are your thoughts about where things are at this point as far as people understanding what information is that they're consuming?
Sure. Well, when I ask people what they're reading, sometimes people think I'm talking about a book, a novel or something. But there's a difference between illiteracy and illiteracy. Illiteracy is not knowing how to read. Illiteracy is knowing how to read and choosing not read. And so a lot of Americans know how to read, but they're not maybe reading books, but they are reading online. I'm still in schools all the time. Kids are getting a lot of their information, and almost every child in this country has a laptop at school. And so they're reading a lot of their texts online. So I think we just need to distinguish between those things. when I was First Lady and after I was First Lady, I was a literacy champion for Verizon, and they supported my literacy initiative. And I made the case to them after I was finishing up and Tom was thinking about running for president. I made the case to them that they needed not just to support literacy, meaning reading text in a book, but they needed to focus on media literacy because they had created phones that were going to take kids any place they wanted to go. And so we created something called the Tech Savvy Award that they funded along with the National Center for Family Literacy. And so I traveled around the country looking for programs that were helping, because we identified that the gap was parents. And parents, a lot of times, of kids who were underserved, who were often kids of color, who didn't have computers at home, didn't want their kids to be connected to computers because they didn't understand them themselves. So we focused on parents and programs that identified issues and helped parents learn the technology so they could have intelligent conversations with their kids to be using it responsibly. And then we made awards to these programs around the country so they could leverage the award into more resources in their area. The first year, the place that won the award was the Lakota Reservation in South Dakota.
Wow.
And they had gotten, the federal government had built them a new school, so their old school was available. They were teaching the parents of the 3-year-olds how to tell stories in their own native languages. So they were teaching them, and they were doing that. And then next door, the 3-year-olds were using how to use computers, but they were also teaching the parents to work with the kids on the computers so they would grow up being able to have conversations with them and understanding them themselves. And so some of these parents didn't have access at home to materials and to computers. So in some of the cases around the country, they were given computers. I was in Queens, New York one day where a man had been up all night working, but in order for his daughter to get a computer, he had to come with her to the school to pick it up. And so, and then of course I traveled the world, same issues, the literacy issues, because if you want a democracy, you have to have people who are literate and who actually do read. The book I would suggest, not only this book, but there are a lot of podcasts out there that are interviewing people that are talking about this. It's been #1 on the bestseller list for nonfiction, The Anxious Generation, which is dealing with how we came to have so many mental health issues, especially with teenage boys. And it traces it back. And the writer, whose name I now am missing, but uses all the research that traces back maybe this issue of illiteracy to a certain, not illiteracy, but illiteracy to a certain extent, to the iPhone and the fact that the kids have had access to it. They've seen the data, so they can actually see where the mental health issues started. People stopped talking to each other. So you'll see that you've seen this movement. It's happening in Iowa. It's happening all over the country, where they're taking cell phones away from kids in school. So they have to talk to each other again. So it's not just about reading, but it's about being in public spaces and having conversations with people and building relationships and being connected to them, so that you can have an intelligent conversation. But I don't think you can go back. I may not like Twitter. It may not be enough for me, but we're not going to go back. So we have to figure out, how we take what we've got and how we use it for all the good things it can do, but also maybe in this case restrict it so that there are times when young kids don't have access. So it's a book that looks at young kids and how they interact with the technology, how 16-year-olds, both girls and boys, interact, teenagers. And I gave it to my adult children who have kids in all those different age groups and different genders, not as to have them say, oh, I like this, or I don't like this, or I don't agree with this, but people are talking about it. So it's something we can all talk about and have a conversation about. I see it as common ground to be able to talk about a book that everybody in every state, there are people reading it, there are school board members reading it, there are superintendents reading it. So it's something we can have a conversation about. And it does speak to the idea of literacy, and it speaks to the idea of our First Amendment rights and saving our democracy. So wherever we can find a place where we can talk about something in a civil manner and not be angry about it. Now, the 16-year-olds are angry about it. I know that because I've got one living next door who doesn't want us to talk about this. But anyway, it's I think it's a conversation we can have that can bring us together and allow us to talk about how we save our own children, basically, and how we help them become informed citizens when they grow up.
Well, we can certainly put a link to the reference to that book in our show notes as well, because it sounds like a really important
Most
connection.
educators around the country and a lot of political leaders are in Iowa. The governor actually proposed, and a law was passed that makes kids all over the state leave their cell phones at the door.
Yeah.
So,
and they've started that, I know, in our public school here this school year.
Yes.
So that's great.
So it's something that's happening across the country, but it's something I don't think it's something that people necessarily need to get angry about. It's just something that's a little surprising to us that they literally can trace that data to 2010 when the iPhone became available. So anyway, something to think about and a good book to read.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put that along with my current read. There we go.
Yes.
Shift gears just a little bit. That you've talked about this several times today, that we often see the world around us today as kind of one side or the other, and that language and that perspective is kind of being perpetuated in a lot of ways. We don't need to go into all those ways it's perpetuated, but we feel divided in a lot of ways. And I feel it in my own family. I know what those tough conversations are kind of like. Tom and I this year have really felt the need to focus on acts of kindness, ways to talk about kindness. And you've talked about that and how to relate about difficult things with other people. We got a couple of questions for you about this. What is an act of kindness you have received that's changed your life?
My mom died of cancer 2 weeks before I graduated from high school. I was sick for the 2 years before that. So I had a 10-year-old brother, and my dad and I were struggling after she died, right before I went to college. And I had this outpouring, and I think everybody, maybe this happens for everybody, but in a small town, everybody stepped in, made sure that my younger brother had his pants when he grew, that he had, if he needed pants, they'd make sure that he was dressed to go to the spring sing, or people would come up with clothing for me or help me figure out what to take to college, or, it was that outpouring of people. And I think in the end, I didn't realize it till much later, but I think in the end, it's why I came home. When I had to decide, when Tom and I were deciding to come back to Mount Pleasant, I never intended to come back to Iowa, never intended to come back to my hometown. But in the end, when I was thinking about teaching, having a family, I thought, if I'm going to have kids, I'm going to have I don't have a mom, and I didn't have a mother-in-law. Some of these women in Mount Pleasant, they're going to help me raise my kids. That community is going to be there when I need help. So there's that. And then the other thing that changed my life, I don't know if this is kindness or not, but when I was a junior in high school, I became an American Field Service student in South America. So my father had told me that it was important. He wanted me to go to college in another part of the country, but when I had the opportunity to go to another country, he told me about being in the war and getting outside of his country and how that made him a better American. So he encouraged me to go to South America, where I lived with a family. I lived with a family. I was their child for 3 months. They were responsible for me. And that changed my life, because I was 3,000 miles away from home, and I realized that I could do that. And I found out what it was like to live in another country where they thought their country was the best country in the world. And they wondered why I didn't know about their music, why they had to know about mine in the United States. And that, they questioned me as an American because we had taken over their copper mines. So it's like I was representing my country. And because I could do that, and because I saw that there was a much bigger world than the small town that I grew up in Iowa, I realized I had to go out and find that. And in the end, I made the decision to come back, bringing that worldview with me, which made me a better Iowan and I hope a better citizen of my community. And so those two things, I think, work together to completely change the life that I.
We often, it's good for us to talk about the things that have impacted us. Sometimes it's harder to talk about ways we have impacted other people, or that we hope we've impacted other people. But I want to ask you, can you think of something that maybe you have done that you hope has changed someone else's life? No need to mention names necessarily, but anything comes to mind for you.
Well, I always love it when my former students, and I meet them. Yesterday, I was volunteering at the Botanical Center here in Des Moines, and here comes one of my 8th graders with her mother, who was actually in school with me. She was younger, like you, was younger. And so I didn't really know her, but she said, I thought that was you, but I wasn't sure. I said, I didn't have white hair when I was teaching you in 8th grade those many years ago. So I love it when my students actually become teachers, or because I got to watch them grow up and I came back and lived there. So now they're in their 40s and 50s and I get to see how they're productive. So certainly being a teacher, I'm very, very proud of being a public school teacher. But I also had the chance to travel the world. And so when I was in Kenya, I met a 13-year-old girl who said she wanted to be a soil scientist. And she was in a girls' school. Her family were farmers. And she came from a very rural country, but she had somehow was identified as a really good student and got to be a part of this school. And I was part of through USAID, we funded something called the Girls Give Back Circle, which supported young girls sort of in a transition between high school and something else, making sure that they had everything they needed to support themselves, that they didn't, that they made decisions that were productive for their futures. And anyway, so I kept in touch with her and ended up for putting her through college. So for $500 a year, I could pay for her college education. And so I just got a letter from her the other day. Or not a letter, it's an email. We're no longer connected through the organization, but we've continued to keep in touch. And she got her education and she worked at for an automotive company for a short time. And then the next thing I knew, she was in Switzerland. And from what I can tell, I think she's traveling with family. She's a nanny. I was a nanny in New York. That was another experience I had living with a family in New York one summer when I was thinking about going into publishing. And anyway, she's a nanny, so she's seeing the world. She's traveling with this family. And, I've tried to explain snow to her because she's in Kenya and I'm in Iowa. But anyway, I love it that she has had that opportunity and that she's off seeing the world now. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what she chooses to do next. So I guess maybe
Very
that
nice.
was
Yeah,
kindness.
absolutely.
That hopefully will take her through life. There's nothing better than an education, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very nice. Well, we also always give our guests a chance to ask us a question. So I don't know if you had a chance to think about this, but do you have a question for us? And you are welcome to put us on the spot. That's fine.
No, that's okay. I think I did that already because my question that I always ask people, because no matter where I am, I ask people what they're reading these days. And Lamar, you told me what you're reading, and Tom, that I asked you the question earlier because I just always do. I become Mrs. Van Allen and ask the question. So, but the other thing is, so Tom and I decided we were going to watch a movie for every year we've been alive. So, and there's no particular thing. We just pick a year and then we're right in the middle of Giant right now. It's a 3-hour movie. So we have time to watch the whole thing. We've got one more session with Giant, but sometimes he'll say, this is 1956, I think. But anyway, he'll pick a year. And we've done over almost 50 of them now. We've watched movies. Westerns, we look and see what was playing that year. 1956 was so exciting. There's so many good movies. I said, we have to spend a whole week or two watching 1956 movies because there's just so many of them. But anyway, we've had a great time watching movies, some of which we've seen before. A lot of them we hadn't seen. We might have been having kids and we didn't have time to watch movies or whatever it was. Some of them are Academy Award-winning movies. The only one I couldn't get through was The Great Lebowski. I just couldn't. I really liked it's Jeff Bridges, right? As a friend of Tom. Right. And they work together on food issues and stuff. But it's like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can watch the end of this one. So anyway, that was the only one. But we've had some that weren't great, but really amazing movies. So if it's not a book, maybe a movie that if you were going to suggest one to me, what it would be. When you definitely watch.
So this is not a movie per se, but I have just finished watching a series on Apple TV called Chief of War.
Chief of War.
Chief of War, which is unique in so many ways. One, it's written and sometimes directed by Jason Momoa. He grew up in Norwalk.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he and Superman, Brandon Routh.
Know that, yes.
Were in junior high together. They played on the soccer teams together.
That's funny.
But Jason is a native Hawaiian, but he lived for a time with his mom in Norwalk. And of course, he's become, quite famous as a movie star. But he's really tied to his native Hawaiian roots. And so he worked with another native Hawaiian writer to write this story of the unification of the Hawaiian Islands under King Kamehameha. And for a time in my career, I was back and forth to Hawaii once or twice a year, working with groups out there. And so I got really a fondness of Hawaiian culture and their history. And it's really quite fascinating. And the story tells about the unification under Kamehameha. And what is really, really unique about this is that Native Hawaiian was nearly a lost language for a time. And the dialogue is Native Hawaiian. And Jason Momoa had to learn Hawaiian for the role. And I would recommend the movie to folks. If you've seen Jason Momoa and some other shows, you may think, oh, this is going to be just really, kind of pushing my limits here, violence. Not really in this film. It's a very interesting series. I think it's 8 parts. So it's not quite a movie. It's a streaming show, and I just really thought it was terrific, and I just offer it to folks for their consideration.
Yeah, no, we watch streaming shows too, but we've just taken a break from that to watch these movies, and so we'll be back to that.
So, Lamar.
Well, I just finished, and this is a series again, and I had to look it up because I couldn't remember the title, but it's called Under the Banner of Heaven, which is I'm into murder mysteries. And my mother was always a little, trepidous when I would go to the Carnegie Library because that's what I was always checking out. But this is a murder mystery that takes place in a Church of the Latter-day Saints community, and how they have to navigate working together with law enforcement, et cetera, to solve this murder case. So it's pretty intense, but it just sociologically, it just has some really fascinating features to it. So that's one I would recommend if you're looking for something.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. No, those are good ones.
I have never seen Giant though. I know that's James Dean.
Yes.
Was that his
Cary
last
Grant
film?
And Elizabeth Taylor and James Dean as quite a cast.
That's a good movie.
Yeah. Boy, if I've seen it, it's been a very long time ago. It's
I
probably
don't
one of
think
those
I've ever seen it. I think I would remember it, but the one that really stuck with me was In the Heat of the Night, which won the Academy Award, and I think Sidney Poitier and Rob Steiger also won. But I was watching it during the Civil Rights Movement. When it first came out, I was more paying attention to the racial issues, not the character issues, and so it was really fascinating to watch it again from a little distance and to see when these two men, at what point they started to respect each other as human beings apart from race. And it just, of all of them, I think that one really had an impact on me watching it again from a little bit of distance. And that may be true with some others. But we did watch The Murder on the Orient Express the other night too.
Ooh, classic.
Excellent.
But I love murder mysteries. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Good. We're big fans of the series out in New Zealand called Brokenwood Mysteries. The Brokenwood Mysteries.
I don't know that either.
Oh, they're like murder mysteries in this such a small town that it's impossible that they could have a murder all the time going on.
Like Agatha Christie, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it's also there's a really nice comedic part to it, and they have an ensemble cast that's been with them for 11 seasons.
Wow. Okay.
And it's fantastic. It's really, really good. So we're waiting eagerly for the release of the next season. But yeah, it's good.
Thanks, you guys.
Well, we got 3 stupid questions for you now.
Okay.
But we just wanted to ask you these 3 fun Iowa fandom questions that may put you on the spot more than anything else we've asked you up to this point. So, Cyclones or Hawkeyes? That would be the Iowa State Cyclones or the University of Iowa Hawkeyes?
Yes. Well, I love all the teams, including the Panthers, the UNI Panthers. But I was born on the eastern side of the state, and I'm a graduate of the University of Iowa, as is our son. And so I grew up a Hawkeye fan. My dad was always Hawkeyes. He would watch them after he found out they won, but which wasn't too often when I was growing up. But yes, I'm a Hawkeye.
Oh, I remember those years. I
couldn't say that for 8 years when I was first lady. I got Tom a tie. I got 3 ties: a Panther tie, a Hawkeye tie, and a Cyclone tie. I took it to a tailor who cut them apart, and his tie had like 3 sections.
I remember those years, the Hawkeyes, when they were really, really bad.
Yes.
And then Hayden Fry came along and turned things around. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. So this is a little bit tougher because it comes really close to home. It's like Caitlin Clark or Kate Martin.
Oh, well, they're both great, but Caitlin Clark is grew up 10 minutes from me. So Caitlin Clark. Okay. I always wanted to, I don't have many regrets in my life, but I didn't grow up in a little town like you guys, Winfield, Mount Union, or New London, or Morning Sun. So I didn't get to play basketball growing up. I had a teacher who took us on Saturday mornings and taught us to play 6-person basketball, and I loved it. But I never got to play. So I just bought the book about Caitlin Clark at Barnes & Noble yesterday. It's right here behind me, and I talked to some women who did a book on the history of women's basketball at the Okoboji retreat last week. So I may do some writing about that. But
very cool.
Great to watch Caitlin Clark. I bought all the women in my family Converse sneakers. Not that she wears those, but that's what women wore when I was growing up. We were playing basketball. So we all have different colors. I've got my bulldog blue ones on now. So
there you go. Well, when we were last in Mount Pleasant, which was last January, when we met Lamar and his spouse there it wasn't this last January. It was the year before.
A year ago. Yep.
Yeah, in 23. We to see a game at the University of Iowa that had Caitlin in it. We went into the Hy-Vee in Mount Pleasant, which I love the Chinese food in the Hy-Vee. I just absolutely love it. I don't know what that is. But we go in there and my spouse sees this gigantic poster or this real size height cutout of Caitlin Clark. And she's holding a Hy-Vee thing that has like it's one of those Chinese boxes, food boxes.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, here's your chance. Go stand by Caitlin. I'll take a picture. You love that photo. It's the photo that pops up on my phone when she calls me. So not Caitlin calls me when my wife calls me.
Right, got it.
So the last one is, by how many points will Iowa beat Penn State by on Saturday night?
I haven't done any research on this. I would be better able to talk to you about the Steelers, but because we're big Steeler Penguins fan, but and my husband is a Pennsylvanian, so I don't know what Penn State's record is.
If it's really bad.
Okay.
In fact, it's so bad they fired their coach last week. And their star quarterback got injured.
Oh no! Well, thank you for telling me that.
They're 0-3 in the Big Ten.
Well, let's go 2 touchdowns and a field goal at least.
Okay,
that's good.
If they win by that much, I'll be thrilled.
17 points. How's that?
Yeah. All right. That sounds great. Great. Well, Christie, thank you so much.
Yeah, this has been wonderful and time spent with you. I enjoyed this.
Oh, thanks. It's been fun. It's been fun.
Yeah.
I'm heading to Mount Pleasant tomorrow to Southeast Iowa. I will go early enough that I can stop at the Pella Bakery on my way because that's
get some
Narsma Bakery.
Yes. Although the Winterset Bakery just south of us, but USA Today named them like 3rd in the country for their donuts.
Really?
So I can get down there in 25 minutes from here and be back with breakfast.
I don't know if you know Coach Danny White from Mount Pleasant. He was a
Denny.
teacher.
Yeah, yes,
Denny.
I talked about he was
Denny.
my colleague, and I had his principal. Yeah,
he was my coach, my crack coach.
Really? Oh my gosh!
And every time we would go to the Drake relays or we go to state, we would make sure we built in enough time to hit the bakery and get our Dutch letters. Yeah.
Yep. Can't do it without Dutch letters. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, for me, it's to get, I would say back in my day when I was a lot heavier than I am, a bag of the windmill cookies.
Yes.
Yes, and they would be pretty much gone by the time I got home. But I can't eat a bag of them these days. But I still love their windmill cookies. They are absolutely great. So
everything.
Oh, by the way, Tom.
Yes,
we're still recording.
I know.
Okay.
I know that. we can split this into 2 podcasts if we need to. Well, anyway, Christie, thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Thanks.
Anytime you want to come back on, you have an open invitation. Okay.
Great. And if you want to find out more about that submarine, one of my first Substack articles is the speech I made at the christening. So there you go.
All right, we will put that in the show notes.
Okay. Great.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
That was a lot of fun.
Whew. What an interview. I mean, where do you even stop? There's so much to talk about.
Well, that was the problem. We had a hard time stopping. So this is going to be a longer podcast probably, but Christie was just delightful. She was, she just was such a good sport on some of the crazy stuff we asked her as well. And it was fun as well as just so informative. It was excellent.
She was very relevant in her work throughout her career, but Tom, what's really evident is she's still very relevant in the work she's doing today.
Yeah.
And the way she's how she's communicating and where she's making a difference. So kudos.
Yeah, absolutely. And she gave us some great resources there. Certainly we're going to put in the show notes, and I would really encourage people to check out her blog, Common Ground, by Christie Vilsack. It's on Substack. She's also part of the Iowa Writers Collaborative. And there are some outstanding writers there that I, for years, would read in the Des Moines Register. Chuck Offenberger, Julie Gamak, Reka Basu, outstanding writers. And some of the best of the writers, in my memory, of the Des Moines Register are now on Iowa Writers Collaborative. And so please check those out. And And Christie really is a storyteller. And
Absolutely.
And those postings that she's making are really good and many of them very, very powerful as well.
I also want to just recommend people to, again, check in the show notes, but there'll be a link to a organization called Disagree Better. And she talked about that as coming out of the National Governors Association group, which gives me real hope that there are people who are working diligently across this country for being able to have better conversations, more positive kinds of relationships across the aisle to make a difference. And not everything is as we have seen it, on YouTube or on the TV. So we're glad to see that.
Yeah. Any special takeaways for you, Lamar, from this conversation?
Oh my! I think probably the biggest takeaway for me is how gracious of a person she is and personable, and how passionate she is about being a representative for those who maybe don't feel represented. Mm-hmm. You can tell that in her stories that she has written. You can tell that in her history of her work, and you can also see it in her conversation and the things that she talks about. So to me, that was challenging and something I hope people take away from the conversation.
What I really appreciated was her definitions of illiteracy versus illiteracy. Right. Or illiteracy. Illiteracy being the inability to read, and illiteracy being you can read, but you choose not to. Yeah. And I think it's a sad state when a person is illiterate. It may be even a sadder state when they are illiterate, and they just choose not to, and to read and learn.
Article and the writer that she was referring to is in that article I mentioned. America is sliding towards illiteracy from the Atlantic. So they do actually refer to that whole program. So yeah, take a look at that article.
Yeah, absolutely. We just came across it, in full transparency. We just came across it just before Christie joined us today. Yeah. And we have to go back and dive into that article, but it sounds really, really interesting.
It's interesting. And I did read the whole thing, and I'm going to read it again. There's some things that, I question, but on the whole, it brings some good information together.
Lamar, really, have a great week.
Yeah, you as well, man.
And we'll talk again soon, and we'll get together and do this again real soon.
Okay. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Tom here. Thank you for listening to Getting to Third Space with Lamar and Tom. Remember to click on subscribe to get notices about new episodes, and be sure to like and share the podcast as well. Opinions and ideas expressed in this podcast are solely those of Lamar Roth and Tom Klaus, and we'd like to hear your opinions and ideas too. You can leave us a voice message on Spotify, or you can email us at the addresses found in the show notes. Also, in the show notes, you can find links to some of the things we talked about today, so you can check them out yourself. Until next time, keep moving forward toward third space.
This podcast was reviewed and approved by Jake and Ebby Dogs Incorporated.